like to introduce to you our first speaker. She currently works for Samsung C&T Corporation in Singapore, where she has been appointed as manager for civil and infrastructure projects. Her involvement in the construction project spans both pre- and post-contract for real estate, infrastructure, and marine structure projects. She is currently involved with the construction of Changi Airport Terminal 5 project in Singapore and various infrastructure projects involving metro rail transits or MRTs, tunneling, and marine construction. She forms part of the project control team in charge of looking after the contracts with the stakeholders, focusing on disputes avoidance and contracts management.
That's right, Jack. She actively participates and supports the objectives of nonprofit organization, currently serving as the president of the Philippines Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors as Singapore chapter president, and also as an associate member grade of the organization. She is also an accredited technical member of the Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Values, an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. To discuss the field, construction and project management, may we call on Engineer Arlene Joy Paredes. Let us give her a round of applause.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Jad and Rhoda, for a very nice introduction. Okay, I hope all of you are doing great out there. And thank you to PICE UPLB, the organizer of Reinforce, for the opportunity to share an overview on project management and quantity surveying with all of you. So without delaying any further, let's start the slides running. And I would like to share my screen. So allow me to squeeze in some poll questions along the way as I do my presentation to check whether if you're still there. Okay. There you go. Can I just check whether you're seeing my screen properly? Okay, so I guess it's a yes. Okay, so at the end of my talk, I hope that I would be able, so right now I'm going to talk about project management and quantity surveying, an overview only, because if you're going to really look into project management and quantity surveying per se, we would need to have like 2 semesters to discuss the whole of it. Okay, so at the end of my talk, I hope that I'll be able to convey the following learning goals across. First is on the Project Management 101, the stages, phases, and drivers, and some digital transformation in project management. Just a few software applications and tools to share with you, and you may want to explore. And next part, we will have, I think, a break after that, and before we discuss the quantity surveyors and the profession, the roles, competencies, and opportunities, and the digital transformation also in QS, which is some software applications and tools. And finally, we will close and conclude with some takeaways or some options for you guys to choose from on possible career paths. Okay. So let's start with the project management, the definition. So let's take a look at Wikipedia's definition of project management. So project management is the process of leading the work of a team to achieve goals and meet success criteria at a specified time. Okay, so the primary challenge of project management here is to achieve all of the project goals within the given constraints. So the primary constraints are scope, time, quality, and budget. So the secondary challenge is to optimize the allocation of necessary inputs and apply them to meet the predefined objectives. Okay, so as the project management phases are executable across different teams in the built environment, you will have the design team, the construction team, the planning and controls team, the contracts team, the health and safety and environment team, quality assurance team, and all the teams that you can think of and form in order for your construction project to be able to, successfully be delivered. Okay, but in the real world, you will encounter numerous subgroups even during the pre-contract phase, of the project, but the important thing is for all these teams to work towards achieving all the goals, given the risks, constraints, and key drivers for the project. All teams should be working together and collaborate. Okay, so from a contractual standpoint, the meet the success criteria talks about specifications, deliverables, and all aspect towards building the project to serve its purpose. So the context of specified time denotes the contract completion date and corresponding damages due to the client or project owner in case of non-fulfillment. Okay, so I hope that the definition that we have here for project management is quite clear. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide, which is on the phases of project management. So allow me to share with you this magic wheel here on the left, because this is something that will be applied in each phase of project management. Okay, so the project charter mentioned in phase 1 is the project definition. The project brief, it details the scope, the objectives, and the stakeholders of the project. So why is project charter important and why is this crucial? This defines the structure of throughout the whole project life cycle. So from inception to disposal or to the completion of the purpose of the structure. So when I say inception, is it from the planning side, and then from the moment that you discuss about the feasibility of this project towards the end, which could be until demolition or after the maintenance part or after it has served its purpose. Okay, so during the phase 2 of the project definition and planning here. Okay, so this will lay down all the aspects of project from budget, timeline, risk management, and planning, and the necessary communication plan. This is very vital towards a successful closeout, whichever stage of construction you will be doing. So the stages will be explained in the succeeding slides. So allow me to highlight that item 2 here, planning, is actually an iterative process where the project management team has to closely monitor the behavior of the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is the chart that you will be looking at if you would like to access the schedule of the project from the start to finish. Okay, the movement of the timeline. Are you delayed, or is your project on time, or is it advanced? Okay, so the changes in the critical path compared to the baseline until you reach the project closeout. So later on, we can focus or have a better view about the critical path. Okay, and next you have at this early stage, actually, I would like to share that if possible, even during the initial stage of the project planning, the work breakdown schedule codes will have to be coordinated with the accounting team who will be handling the payments. Why? Because the WBS codes, if properly laid out, are also used as cost codes. So the work breakdown schedule is actually a list of the activities of your project, and this will have a what they call the activity predecessor or the activity successor. So if you will be exploring on, let's say, Microsoft project, or if you've heard of it, or the Primavera software, this is what you will do as when you do the work breakdown schedule and the planning part. So you'd have to assign the predecessor and the successor of the activities, and also link them on the link these codes together, and then find the relationship. Like for example, you're going to do excavation, and then the next phase will be on the leveling. After excavation, you will have to do the leveling, and then these two activities, there could be some overlapping. You would have to plan it together, like will it have a start to finish, or finish to start, or start to start relationship with each other. So these are being done during the phase 2 of the project. Okay, and then you would need to also, the reason why I wanted to suggest, or in some companies we are already doing the linking of the WBS codes to the accounting codes. Why? Because, like for example, you have some change orders. In Philippines, we refer to change orders. Here in Singapore, we refer it as variation orders. So once you have a variation, if you have linked these WBS codes to your accounting codes, then you can easily track what are the breakdown of costs or what are your expenditures for this certain variation order. So it will be an easier and a lesser chances of missing out on cost, because time is money. Money is also the something that you would need to run the project and also to claim that your project has been successfully delivered. If you have losses, you might say, or you have lost profit in case of being the contractor or the client, then you might not be able to say to yourself that you have successfully completed the project. Or yes, you may have delivered it as long as the other aspects have been successfully being met. Okay. Okay, so the post-mortem here, the project performance and control is you will have to identify your objectives and you will have to grade yourself as you go along the construction, the whole construction. Okay, so when you talk about project management, you're not just looking at the construction phase, whether you're on time. You're not just looking at the design phase, whether is it suitable to fit its purpose. You would need to review the project as a whole, and you need to ensure that all these activities or all the departments are being linked together and they're moving as one towards one common goal, which is to deliver the project on time and with utmost quality. Okay. So the post-mortem here described in Project Closeout pertains to the evaluation of success or failure of the project's outcome versus the objectives or the key performance indices. Okay. So remember that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So a project without proper planning is a disaster waiting to happen. Okay, so as I've mentioned earlier, that project planning is an iterative process. Okay, so allow me to draw your attention to the activities under the project planning stage. So the list is not exhaustive, but it covers the basics. So the key constraints of the project on your right, the triangle here, are time, cost, and quality. And of course, you have the scope. In the real world, you cannot satisfy all three in a single project: the time, cost, and quality. In project management, you would have to choose which one will be the driving constraint for your project. So the work breakdown schedule mentioned here, as I briefly discussed earlier, is the list of activities to be executed during the project and with the corresponding links amongst other activities. So whether there will be a predecessor or successor for each activity. Predecessor is an activity that happens before the certain activity, and the successor is an activity that happens after. Okay, from the word of it. Okay, so for each activity, and whether they will have a start to start or start to finish relationship, which will then define the critical path of the project. So the critical path is also known as the longest trail of activities, which in case of delay would affect the milestones set to meet. Okay, so once you enter a construction project, you would be faced with a number of milestones, like the deadlines. So this is the date that you would need to deliver the project. And the critical path would be very crucial, that there will be no delays along this path. Otherwise, your project will be in delay. Okay, so if you would actually look into the planning side of a project, it is very exciting, because you would need to reassure yourself that once you do the planning, that the ample time was given for each activity, and that if in case of delay, you would be able to do a catch-up. So you would have to relate all the activities in the construction projects together, and you need to provide them ample information for them to consider whether it will be in the field of design, whether they need to change the design, how much time do they have to change the design, if they're going to construct it, and then how much time do they still have. So it is very important that if you're into project management, you have very not extrovert, but you're very good with communicating with people, so that you will get all your information across in a specified time, and whenever it's crucial, you'll be able to highlight it positively. Okay. Okay, it is also vital that during the planning stage, the risks would have to be identified. The risk is also a separate topic that needs to discuss, but it's also an exciting topic and a very vital part to plan during the construction, during any construction project. Okay, risks are unexpected events which could give negative or positive effect in the project once encountered. So when I say unexpected, maybe you can activate your chat box and say, when you say unexpected, is it positive or does it yield negative effect on the construction project? I don't think I can see the chat box. Okay. Okay, so let me just explore the chat box for a moment here. Can somebody like respond to the question? For example, I mentioned about risk and mentioned that it is an unexpected event in a construction project. So would you think a risk would impose a positive or a negative effect on the construction project as a whole? Okay, so I guess I would have to leave another time for the questions. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so normally, if you say risks, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will have a negative effect on the project. Okay, so risks are unexpected events, but it can still have like a silver lining, similar to what we experienced with COVID-19. It is an unexpected event, and it has imposed tremendous risks and has greatly affected the construction industry. But to some, still, this imposed like a silver lining. Especially in your case, you were able to come up with a more innovative approach to render, talks to many, or to have activities which can span and reach more people virtually, right? Okay, so the whole team would have to plan the roles and responsibilities for each party and the communication plan as well as the budget. Okay, so throughout the entire construction phases and stages, proper planning is a must. And for every stage identified, there will be risks that you would have to consider. In consideration of risks and project management drivers, the triple constraint is reviewed and analyzed after a series of questions that you can come up with the procurement strategy suitable for your project. Okay, so now let's move on to the stages of construction project. Okay, so a construction project is normally divided to two stages. We have the pre-contract and the post-contract stage. So the procurement process exists between both the pre and post-contract stages. So the list of the activities that transpire within these two stages are not exhaustive, but it basically covers the scope. Okay. So the magic wheel, which I showed you earlier, is placed on top of each stage to indicate that each stage has all the phases of the project management on its own. So pre-contract phase here is, there's another term for that. I think I can check on the chat box if somebody can let me know. What do you think is another term for pre-contract? Starts with the letter B. Anyone? I think I can organize and reach out to Jot, Arrow, or Roldan on this. And maybe I can share with you just for an icebreaker. How about a 100 peso Gcash? For anyone who would type in the chat box, what is another term for pre-contract? Is anybody there? Wow. Okay. So I want to say hi to my son over here. He's a grade 8 student and he actually answered tender. That's correct, babe, but the other answer is I mentioned starts with the letter B and it's bidding. So Queenie, yes, you're correct. Bidding. So bidding and tender process are two other terms which define a pre-contract stage. So during this stage, you would imagine it will have the same project initiation requirements. I would like you to check on this go or no go meeting. So we normally do this during tender and then identify what are the project scope and who are our competitors to see whether or not we will proceed with the tender submission or the bidding, or are we going to bid for it. Yan. Okay, so thank you very much, Queenie. I'll be in touch with Jat Araw-Araw, our host, our organizers, to how to send you this your price of 100 Gcash. So it's nice to know that you're still there. Okay. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so the project brief, the pre-qualification process is the shortlisting of interested contractors for the project. This will take about 3 to 6 months review, and upon submission and shortlisted contractors will receive a notification that they are pre-qualified to participate in the tender. Okay, so the project brief that you're seeing here is a review from a contractor's point of view, will be a summary of tender requirements, the information taken from the issued specifications. And then the go on no go, actually, there's different views for it. It can be from a client standpoint or from a contractor standpoint. So from a client standpoint, meaning the employer or the one who wants to have this project done, would be the process of reviewing the business case or the feasibility of the project and the approval to proceed with the pre-contract selection of the contractor. So as I mentioned earlier, for the contractor, the go and no go whether we will proceed with the tender or submit it. Okay, so risk and procurement strategies are interrelated. So the chosen strategy and the forms of contract influence the allocation of risk, the project management requirements, the design strategy, the employment of consultants and contractors, and the way in which the client's project team and the various designers, consultants, contractors, and suppliers will work together. Okay, so the request for quotations mentioned here or formation of exclusivity agreements is actually a strategy of the contractor to get the best offer. So, for example, you have a huge excavation requirement, like similar to when we do like a building and you need to have or an infrastructure where there will be a massive excavation to be done. So you can ask for earthwork specialist contractors with the right number of resource to partner with you. Okay, and then you can have a separate bidding for this, and then the winning partner will be your partner to join to be on a joint venture or to enter the bidding stage for the project. Okay, so we now, for the post-contract, as you know, this is already the execution stage. So my work actually deals with on the project control and monitoring, the variation order assessment, the variation order management, payment certifications, contract administration, dispute management. So my current job actually covers those aspects. Okay, so what we do is we evaluate the claims being submitted by our subcontractors and the different stakeholders, and we also submit our claims towards the client. So if there are a number of dispute is actually this item actually arise if you have a disagreement with your subcontractor or with the client. So if you don't agree, sometimes usually it happens because of the question of who is going to bear the costs for additional works. So there could be a variation which the client would say, this one should be under your scope, but then we disagree. So we have this certain dispute and we would have to prove our entitlement, okay, which could lead to different aspects of dispute resolution techniques, or even a case at law, or under the common law, arbitration or litigation. Okay, that's why we also have construction lawyers. Okay, and then for the procurement strategy, I would like to highlight with you, because the whole project management would also rely on whether you have given the right advice on what procurement route to take, which moves us to the next phase, which is procurement strategy. So procurement is in construction refers to the acquisition of goods and services needed to successfully complete a project from start to finish. And this procurement strategy is a route or system towards identifying the form of contract, selecting the eligible contractors, suppliers, and managing the form contracts and construction. So the guide questions and the key drivers or constraints will determine the most suitable strategy. So in every construction project, to me, the most important thing is to review the contract that you're executing. So what lies under, what are your executables, what are your deliverables, what is your timeline, what is your deadline. All of these are written inside the contract. That's why my interest with the contract is very huge. Okay, now looking at briefly on the procurement strategy, we actually have a number of procurement strategies available, but we will focus on, because of our some time constraint, we will be focusing on the traditional system and the design and build system. But allow me also to share with you that in the Philippines, we have this public-private partnership, which is very existent in our project nowadays. I believe you have heard about the project that our administration has imposed, which is anybody who can answer? We have this project, infrastructure projects, they call it the blank 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 program. So what is it? Can somebody answer? Wow. Okay. I think you're very shy. Now you send the answer via direct message. Okay, so the winner we have, hold on. Yes, correct. Virna Lim, it is the Build program. Thank you very much. I can see the responses, which means that you are still there and you are awake, and we are having this virtual conversation, one-way conversation, because I'm doing all the talking. Okay, so now we move on to the procurement strategy, correct? Build program is a form of public-private partnership, because most of the contracts under the public-private partnership is, we will have this, for example, San Miguel Corporation. The San Miguel Corporation is now tasked to deliver the airport at the Bulacan area, right? And then this is a private company. They will finance the project, and there will be like a concession of, say, 50 years. Concession meaning they will be running the project, they will build it, they will operate it, and the proceeds of it depends on the contract, will be shared between the private entity and the government, and for the next 50 years before this project will be handed over back to the government. So that's how the mechanism of public-private partnership works, and we have a lot of that. Okay, because that is the answer to the question, like if you have a project but there's not much or not enough funds to finance the project, can your project still go on? And the answer is yes, because we have this procurement strategy which is PPP. Okay, and in some aspects you would be asked also, does the client require the project to be completed quickly, meaning time is of the essence, or with cost certainty, meaning with limited exposure to cost increase, then there's a certain form of contract which best fits this requirement. So the keyword is actually lump sum, so fixed price. Okay, and then to highlight the design and build system, here we have the comparison between the traditional and the design and build procurement routes. I would like to draw your attention now to the involvement of the responsibility of the client, between the client and the contractor. So under the traditional procurement route, what happens is the project brief, the feasibility study, the concept design, the detailed design, and the tender will happen and will be under the client and its consultant. Okay, so they will design the whole thing and then go and raise the tender, call out for tenders, and then do the evaluation before your contractor would come in. So the downside about it is you will not have any inputs from the construction or from the contractor for the design, because it is just going to be a build only project. Okay, whereas for your design and build procurement route, this will also be a good procurement strategy if you would like to save time, because the design and the construction phase of the project overlaps. Okay, because the contractor's involvement comes in at the concept design. So there are a number of stages when you do the design. You have schematic design, you have the conceptual design before you go into the detailed design for the project, for any construction project. Okay, so the involvement of the contractor during the design and build happens during the conceptual design is being called, which is also good because you would be saving, the client will be able to save some time, and at the same time he can use the expertise of the contractor to hone or develop the design. Okay. So here we just tabulated the difference and the advantage and disadvantages of between the traditional procurement route and the design and build. Okay, so let's look at it. Let's take a look at it. So the advantages for traditional procurement route, you have the most familiar, this is the most familiar method among construction stakeholders, and there's a possibility for a competitive bidding with detailed documentation, because during the traditional route, they will call in the tender and everything should be in place. I mean, all the drawings should be complete and all your design drawings should be able to, complete and then ready to be priced. Okay, awareness of financial commitment before commencement of the works. And BOQs will serve as guide for valuation of variations and high-level cost control and monitoring. Okay, so in every project, I want you to remember I haven't seen any project that does not have any variations. So one way or another, you will have some change orders, you will have some variations. And you will need to know how to deal with it. In your contract, the first line of command, like when you are going to ask for additional payment due to these variation orders. Oh, by the way, let me share with you that variation is not always an addition. It can also be an omission. Okay, so these BOQs or this bill of quantities will serve as your schedule of rates, and it will serve as a guide for you to be paid for additional works. And in your contract, there will be an hierarchy on how you will be how these additional costs will be evaluated and paid to you. Okay, so what are the disadvantages under the traditional route? So there's a lack of collaboration and communication among stakeholders because of the separation of design and construction, and there's a minimum involvement of the contractor to the design. There's also longer period to finish the design because the design and construction phases are separate. Okay, and looking at the design and build procurement route, there's a minimum financial risk on the client and there's a single point of responsibility. So there's a possibility of shorter period to complete the project in view of the integration. Design changes may be minimum, because the collaboration between the contractor and the designer is there. So if there's based on the expertise of the contractor, they can also provide inputs on how the project can be done, on how the project can be designed. So this is a better option for inexperienced clients. So what's the disadvantage? There could be some difficulty in the bid comparison because every contractor will be rendering a different design concept to the client. Okay, so there's lower level of completion at the bidding process, and the variation management will be challenging. Okay, so this is just an overview of the standard forms of contract that you may encounter once you have entered the real world. Okay, in Philippines, FIDIC is most exercised or most used, but in most projects or large infrastructure projects, I can still see bespoke form of contract. Bespoke is it means that it doesn't really follow the entire form of contract, but you can have like an inkling on it can be like derived from. Okay, so in Singapore, we are used to having these public sector standard conditions of contract, the REDAS or the SIA, for building projects. Okay, so in my current contract with in the current contract of our company with the Changi Airport Group, we have this public. It's a bespoke, but it was derived from PSS COC, meaning there are a number of clauses that have crossed out and replaced or deleted. Okay, so these forms of contract will serve as guide to the contractor or to the client or to the consultants when they execute a project. So these will serve as guidelines, and they have a number of Crayola books or different colors of books to suit your needs. So you have the turnkey project, you have the design and build form of contract, you have short form of contracts, and all that. Okay, more of it. If we have more time, we can discuss more about it. Okay, so now I would like to share with you about the digital transformation in project management. Okay, so some project management tools. So apart from the MS Project or the Microsoft Project, which is a scheduling tool, or the Primavera software, they also have this from Bentley, which is the Synchro. This is very good interface because it links the 3D model to your schedule. And you will also be able to track on the risk or some overlap or some clashes while doing this. Okay, so here actually in the picture, you would see that there's a clash between the column construction and the deck removal. And you'll be able to highlight it to your construction team and also assess on, as a project manager, assess on the effect of the time of the any changes that will have to be made on your timeline. Okay, and the next one that I would like to share with you is on this the use of drones when you do project management and project monitoring. So let's watch a quick video. Do I have a, can I check whether it has a sound? Can you hear the sound?
Bespoke.
Thank you. Okay. So that is the importance of having a drone because it helps with the construction progress monitoring. It can also deliver aerial photography and 3D modeling and 3D mapping for the survey. So you can have like a topography in a snap because they can do some orthomosaic maps. Okay. And it can also do volumetric measurement for massive earthworks. Okay. So I think that's it for my overview on project management. Okay, so let's now move on to quantity surveying part of our top of our talk. Okay. Okay, so let me define first works of a quantity surveyor. It is a construction professional whose main expertise is primarily to carry out an estimate, a project cost control, and do quantity takeoff, but whose duties also include commercial, risk, and contract management to ensure that the party he works for gets the best value for money and to allow for a smooth project flow from inception to completion. So he can be a quantity surveyor working for a contractor, a consultant, or the client. If you would like to know more about this, you can visit the PICQS website. Okay, so as I have mentioned earlier, the roles of quantity surveyors provides us with a vast career path, and it has a high demand for the profession. So initially, when I was having the civil engineering course, I was looking at quantity surveyors as a profession that is lower than civil engineers. And then when I entered the world and I was tasked to do some roles that are fit for a quantity surveyor, I began to seek for more learning because and then I came to the realization that actually the lack of knowledge that I have is already the level of the profession that I thought the quantity surveying is actually my level of ignorance about the profession. So I needed to do more studies, and I needed to, invest in myself and learn some more. And then these are some of the roles of the quantity surveyors. You can be a cost planner. You can be a beam QS manager. You can be a contract administrator. You can be an arbitrator, a commercial manager, and a vast number of things. You can also be a construction lawyer as you progress. Okay, so other terms that are being used globally, we have the estimators, we have cost consultants, we have contract advisor, we have construction economist. Depends on the country that you are in. Okay, and then what are the required competencies if you would like to be or to explore the world of quantity surveying and become professional quantity surveyors? We have three types, which is the mandatory and the core and some optional competencies that you're looking at. And the levels that are described here, the level 1 is for knowing, meaning you would need to have a technical knowledge or some inkling. You have taken some courses and you're aware about the roles that you do about, let's say, accounting principles and procedures. You have done or you know about business planning. Okay, and level 2 is you're actually the level for doing, meaning apart from knowing the concept behind it, you are executing or practicing the works, meaning you have done client care, you do communication and negotiation, you exercise health and safety. And level 3, which is a very important role on ethics and rules of conduct. So when level 3 comes in, that means you'd be able to advise or give advice, ample advice to your client. So it's not just knowing the theories behind it or doing it. You are also capable of giving advice. So what are the core competencies that we're talking about here? So we have the commercial management of construction, design economics and cost planning. You have the construction technology and environmental services. You have contract practice, procurement and tendering, project finance, control and reporting, and quantification and costing of construction works. Okay, so under the mandatory competencies, you have this conflict avoidance, management, and dispute resolution. You have data management, diversity, inclusion, team working, inclusive environments, and sustainability. Under the optional, you can choose 2 from the list here. You have capital allowances, you have due diligence, insurances, contract administration, project feasibility analysis, risk management, conflict avoidance, management, and dispute resolution. Okay, so there are a lot of competencies here that you're looking at, and I don't think that you can find these under our civil engineering curriculum or in any engineering curriculum. That's why there's a need for us to continuously advance and continuously conduct studies and attend courses after we graduate, if you would like to explore the QS world. Okay, so what are we looking at here right now? So this is the global demand for quantity surveyors, the need for professional QS around the globe. So if you are looking at going to Australia, the quantity surveyors are actually on shortage occupation list. If you look into New Zealand, if you're going to apply for visas, quantity surveyors are actually included in the long-term skills shortage list. And in UK, they are included in what they call the MLT SSL, which is the medium and long-term strategic skills list. Okay, and in Canada, wherein they call us cost estimators, there is quantity surveyors are on the federal skilled worker program list. And you can see here just as statistical data on the shortages across the globe. So we have the China skills shortages, and it is ranked number 1 for they're looking for quantity surveyors or commercial managers. And in the US, we have a rank number 3 for this. The quantity surveyors have about more than 80% of the respondents need or impose the need for more quantity surveyors. Even in Saudi, where if you would like to Google and know more about the construction activities in Saudi Arabia, they have this Vision 2030, and they will build a lot of projects, infrastructure building projects, iconic ones that you would see in Google as like something that has made became an iconic project. So they have this vision of KSA 2030, and right now they have about 26,000 active projects priced at which are worth about $2.5 trillion. And so they have this vast need for quantity surveyors. Even here in Singapore, we also have some shortages on quantity surveyors, or those that are practicing professionally in this field, because in Singapore there is this Security of Payment Act, which aims to protect the subcontractors for non-payment or for a delinquent payment of the completed works. So they have this, and the quantity surveyors plays a vital role in doing the negotiation and evaluation of claims of the subcontractors. Okay, so even in Malaysia and Hong Kong, we have these responses, and it denotes the shortages in skilled professional of quantity surveying. So you will see that from these slides, there's just this vast requirement to have more quantity surveyors worldwide. And when I say quantity surveyors, we don't actually just come from being or having a civil engineering background. Quantity surveyors can be from the field of architecture, can be from the field of mechanical engineer, or can be from the electrical engineering field. It can also be an accountant. So there is this allied professions that for the exercise, you can be a quantity surveyor, and you can perform these tasks that were mentioned earlier in my previous slides. Okay, so now let's look at how would you become a professional quantity surveyor. So as I've mentioned earlier, our curriculum in civil engineering, or for any engineering curriculum, we don't have much subjects or courses that deal with the commercial aspect on how to run or manage a project or construction project per se. That's why in the field of quantity surveying, a number of professional bodies have been launching their structured trainings in order to patch up for these needs to learn more and to exercise the work professionally in a standard manner. So how to become a professional quantity surveyors? First is you have to know the industry. You have to register for structured trainings and learn more about the profession, and then hone your competencies. As I mentioned in the second slide, what are the competencies that we need to patch up? So we have these accounting principles. So how is your understanding about the basic accounting principles? Your conflict avoidance. When you say conflict avoidance, what are the steps in order to mitigate the conflict with your subcontractors or with the other stakeholders? What are the measures that you take in order to protect yourself? So what are the items that you include in a contract even before you start the project in order to avoid disputes and any conflict with your subcontractor? Okay, so in that case, these are the things that some of the things that we work on as a practitioner of a quantity surveying. Okay, so you can also explore and get certified through APC, or the Assessment of Professional Competence, and then practice as a professional. If you would notice that in my slide, I have there some post-nominals apart from being a civil engineer. So if you graduated and you have passed the board, you have this post-nominal BSCE, right? So if you become a professional quantity surveyor, or perhaps you have this level of, you have attained the studies required fit to become a quantity surveyor. Right now, my level is associate. That's why you can see that I have the APICQS post-nominal. After I have done some studies and after I've passed a few exams, that is what I gain. You can also see another post-nominal there, which I have, which is ACR, is for arbitrators. So after I have done some trainings on dispute resolution techniques, then I acquire that post-nominal. Similarly, if you have done like MS or masteral or a PhD, so you will get a different post-nominal for that. Okay, so that's just to explain how you progress after your university world. Okay, and I have here listed just a few post-nominals that you can look at for being a registered. Once you have become a professional and you have attained chartered membership or certified professional membership with any of these professional bodies that regulate. So these bodies are like similarly similar to Professional Regulation Commission in a different manner, because what they do is they evaluate you based on your knowledge on the commercial management or quantity surveying per se. So you can attain these post-nominals, which are, for example, MPICQS, MRICS, MAIQS, MNZIQS, MSISV. It is vast and it depends on the country that you are practicing. Okay, so I would like to share a brief moment with you on the PICQS, or the Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors, because if you will look at here on the slide below, these are some of the international professional bodies, and I am proud to share with you that PICQS, with its objective to provide affordable learning, to learn more about the quantity surveying, so they have come up with this structured training exclusive for its members. So one, we have this P3T, or the think tank training. You can explore it. This is more on the knowing, or the level 1 part, and it will discuss a number of competencies that are listed in the previous slide, to talk more about it and to know more about the standards on how to execute the works. Next is on PAP 1. So what do you do with the level 2, or the application? They provide trainings on how you will do some cost comparison, on how you will manage a contract in terms of providing the cost to complete, or what is your forecast to complete the project, and other commercial aspects of the construction project execution. Okay, so in GAMP, we have this guidance and monitoring program wherein you will be trained to write about your demonstration of the competencies listed in the first slide that I have shared with you. So for example, if you say basic accounting principles, so where have you learned about the basic accounting principles? Okay, and the level 3 advising is, for example, you have encountered a dispute with your subcontractor. So how are you going to deal with it? Your subcontractor has already applied for an adjudication and is being, in some way, adjudication is a form of a dispute resolution wherein they're like suing you for not paying or for having this dispute in the amounts that you have paid them. So if that's the case, if you have to protect the company that you work for, because if you have this court proceedings or this dispute resolution being exercised upon you, it may when you tender for a project, it may affect your key performance indices or the evaluation of your bid. Okay, so these are things that we have to execute as commercial managers or as quantity survey managers in a construction project. And on the level 4, which is PAP 2, the training involved is on the presenting and how they will guide the candidate to present the case study. Like in my case, I have done a case study on evaluating a disruption claim. Because I have these two subcontractors while executing the works in the Changi Airport, they are claiming that their works are delayed because of this other subcontractor who has been disrupting their works. So those things that you need to do in order to, come up with a solution to pacify these subcontractors in order to claim or who has this entitlement for additional cost or who has an entitlement for additional time. So you'd have to gauge those and then evaluate those and provide a possible solution to the other stakeholders involved. Okay, and finally, if you go for towards the end, which is the PMLA, you will experience some mentoring that will happen until you sit on the final assessment and face the evaluators for you to get your certificate or to be able to pass, like another degree that you gain. Not a degree, but a certification that you are a certified professional quantity surveyor. Okay. Now let's move on to how do we execute works digitally. So right now, I believe you have heard about BIM, and part of it is the software that we are looking at, the 5D BIM. So there are a number of levels when you do a BIM or you involve a BIM in a construction project. Nowadays, we are we're very digital, and we have these digital footprints on executing the works. And one thing that I would like to share with you is this Cubicos by Glodon. So this is not a paid advertisement. I'm just sharing it because I've been using it, and it's very useful for the execution of works and to shorten the period of time to deliver. Okay, so right now I believe in the practice of civil engineering, you are still also doing the traditional way where you carry T-squares, you carry scale rule. Okay, and then you tabulate the calculations through Excel. You provide formula, you provide deductions. For example, in a quantifying for a slab, how much volume do you need? You need to deduct the openings, right? But if you look into the contract also, you need to check on the preambles part and see whether there are areas which you do not need to deduct. For example, in most cases, they have this standard method of measurement in a certain concrete slab. For if the opening is about 1 square meter, depends on your contract. You may say 1 square meter up to 2 square meters. They find it negligible, and there's no need for you to deduct that quantity anymore. So that's just an example and overview on how we do things. Okay, so in a 2D software, an example is AutoCAD. You read the drawing, you measure the length and the area or the quantity, and then you create formula for deductions, and you also generate the report in Excel. So right now we have this 5D beam, actually 3D because it is just more on modeling. So when you say 5D, you incorporate the essence or the element of cost in your model. So that's why it becomes 5D, and you generate the BOQ or the report with the program. Okay? So when you do with Cubicos, they have here the things mentioned here is actually TAS, TRB, TME, and TBQ. So TAS is for architectural and structural models, TRB is for rebars, TME is for M&E, and TBQ is for the whole bill of quantities. Sorry. So when you do BIM, actually every aspect will be done separately, and you have to join it together, and you check on, that's why you need to check on the clashes. Okay. So this is an example of an output of how the Glodon, the Cubicos do the works for some of the projects in Singapore. So we have this a hexagon from Hexagon Construction. It's a sports complex, and they use TAS and TRB to lay out this model. And we have this China Jingye for the residential and commercial, wherein they also use TAS and TRB. So TRB is for the calculation of the rebars. Okay. So moving forward, so what do you think are your career insights? After you have gone college, where do you think are you going? So a while ago, Jat and Roldan are talking about where do you think they would be focusing on after they have graduated. And it's a good thing that in every aspect of project that you would look into, whether you would like to go for the power, you would like to go for the water resources engineering, you would still see quantity surveying inside your companies. So here I would like to share with you just a few logos that you may look into for the performance of your works. So as I mentioned earlier, these things on top is for the certifications. So after you've graduated in college, if you would like to pursue more and gain more and study more, you may look into having a PMP certification, which is for project management, or PMI RMP is for risk management. There are still a lot of certifications available. You just need to check which one would be best suited for your needs. Okay, and you have a PICQS, you have RACS, you have AIQS. AIQS for Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. SASV is for Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers, and NZIQS is for New Zealand. So technically, at the moment, PICQS have this mutual agreement with AIQS and NZIQS. So if you obtain the professional status with PICQS, you can automatically apply and become a professional member for AIQS and NZIQS. So that's just a nutshell overview on where you want to go. And for, as I mentioned about the projects, here are some software that you would like to look into if you would like to venture into scheduling or project management planning. Okay, so you have P6 or Primavera 6, you have Synchro, the one with the 3D, and you also have MS Project or Microsoft Project. Okay, so for the development of the infrastructure works, you have Autodesk Revit and the Navisworks. Navisworks provides this navigation to the other navigation of your 3D. Okay, and of course some companies that you may want to look into. So the one on your left, these are actually design companies that you would like to venture on or explore employment. And then we have here for some contractors, just very few. And on the right here, Arcadis, JLL, Surbana Jurong, Ryder and Turner Townsend. These are cost management companies for construction projects and for other assets. Okay, so now moving forward, some points to ponder for all of you. So there is a vast world in construction industry, and a lot of things to explore, a lot of knowledge to gain, and I hope that these things may help and inspire you. Okay, first know what you want to be. Where do you envision yourself? You need to establish a career plan and focus on your goal. So make the most mistakes that you can think of and learn from it. Invest in yourself and learn as much as you can with what you have. Okay, so you cannot be an expert in everything. So discover your passion and hone your skills. The best part is you have to share what you've learned and pay it forward, and I hope that you would all aspire to become leaders and not a boss. Okay, that's the end of my presentation on quantity surveying. I would like to thank everyone for your attention.